When faced with the reality of death, people react in different ways. Thinking about mortality often leads to a deeper understanding of one's fate. Even though death is certain, many continue their daily lives without truly grasping the meaning of life and mortality. The fleeting nature of life and its sudden end are often overlooked, making the search for life's meaning a complex and unresolved journey. In Persona 3, exploring these existential themes is crucial, particularly the search for purpose in the face of mortality. This analysis aims to highlight the core themes of the game, looking closely at its complex narrative and rich symbolism. The key focus will be on how the protagonists confront existential challenges, especially their encounters with death. We'll begin with an overview of the main themes in Persona 3, followed by a detailed look at its narrative elements, including the journey versus the answer. Additionally, we will examine each character's journey for meaning and personal growth throughout the story. Ultimately, this exploration seeks to reveal the deep existential questions woven into Persona 3, providing insight into the human experience and our ongoing search for the answer to life. In this first section, I'm going to be going over the two main themes that I believe to make up the story of Persona 3. The first being death and mortality. One of the most prominent themes is the exploration of death. The game confronts players with the reality of mortality through the concept of the dark hour, shadows, and the inevitable end of life. Characters grapple with their fears and regrets, emphasizing the importance of accepting death as a part of life. The biggest example we see of this is the evokers in Personas. Personas need their users to be in an extreme emotional response. The evokers mimic the users taking their own life, which signifies accepting death. Another good example of life and death would be how the characters cope with loss and grief. Characters in the game face significant loss, leading to different coping mechanisms. The narrative explores how individuals deal with grief and the impact it has on their lives. This encourages empathy and the understanding of the complexities of human emotions. A good example of how characters cope with loss and grief would be the social link with the old couple. Bonkuchi and Mitsuko had a son who died in a car accident, and you later find out that the persimmon tree that's planted at your school was in memory of their son. They are sad because the school was trying to cut down the tree, but later some old friends of their son started a petition to try to keep it, but the old couple decides to let it get cut down because they found out that the reason why the tree was going to get cut down was because the school was trying to expand, and they believed that their son would have wanted that over a tree in his memory. This social link shows how people deal with losing someone important to them. People often hold on to grief and sometimes do things that the deceased wouldn't have wanted. The story from this social link is to move on from grief and live in their memory. Another example of how Persona 3 explores life is the emphasis on hope and resilience. Characters learn to confront their fears and traumas, ultimately striving to find meaning in their lives. The game conveys a message about the power of perseverance in the face of adversity. The biggest example of this is when they decide to fight Nyx. Despite Ryoji warning them it was inevitable, they decided to fight anyways. The second theme is existentialism. The game prompts players to consider existential questions such as the meaning of life and the choices one makes. Characters often reflect on their purposes and the consequences of their actions, inviting players to engage with these philosophical ideas. Ryoji's conversation with Makoto on the field trip is one of the biggest reminders to me of this. He said, "Every one of us will die someday, right? Eventually, a time will come when we have to part. So then why? Why do people try so hard to connect with each other? And I'm not just talking about romance either. It's the same for friends, family, everyone. For each person you connect with, just makes saying goodbye even harder. So what's the point?" Due to Ryoji being deaf, he lacks the understanding of human interaction and connection, though he's curious about it. This is what leads him to trying to grow his relationship with Makoto and everyone else he interacts with. He wants to understand. Aigis is also asked and had some very existential thoughts. One of the things she says at the very beginning of the answer is this: the fact that a future exists and being able to access it are very different things. We did not understand such an obvious and natural principle yet. Indeed, we understood very little. We knew nothing about using the key to open the path to the future. In this section, we will be talking about the journey versus the answer. The main story for Persona 3 was the journey for these characters, but only Makoto found the answer at the end. Makoto found the answer to life through death, making sure his friends could live in his place, and Aigis searched for the answer during the journey with Makoto, but ultimately, she found her answer a lot later. But what is the meaning of life, and what is the answer? The meaning of life is different for everyone. People have big ambitions, some are fine with being normal, we all walk towards our own answers. For Makoto, the answer to life was found through death. Without death, life is meaningless, and our lives wouldn't be as valuable without it. Makoto found out why people have to die, and it's death that gives our life meaning. He used this knowledge to have the strength to sacrifice himself to seal Nyx. His answer was the bonds he forged throughout the year, and he managed to live life to the fullest, knowing he would die in that year's time. He accepted his death due to the bonds he had made, giving him the courage and peace of mind to sacrifice himself to protect the ones he loves. In the answer, Aigis begins her own journey to find the answer to life. Aigis was created to be a weapon to kill shadows. Beneath her formidable combat abilities and undying commitment to her mission lied a growing curiosity and a yearning to understand human emotion and experience. The internal conflict of her evolving consciousness and her existence was the driving force for her development. Her relationship with Makoto and the other SEES members helped her develop an understanding of empathy and emotional resonance that challenged her preconceived notions of her own humanity. Due to her growing relationship with Makoto throughout the story, she questions the complexities of love, loss, and self-identity. Some key moments of Aigis' character growth is when Ryoji is introduced. She grew a strong desire to kill him and protect everyone. She started to empathize in some way with them and didn't want to see anyone hurt or sad. Even when she comes back after the battle with Ryoji, she's upset that she doesn't feel the same emotions everyone else does. Everyone wants to fight on and not give up because the end is coming even though Nyx can't be killed. She doesn't understand why they would want to keep fighting and wishes they would choose to give up their memories and live in a false reality because it won't hurt them. That's when everyone gives their own reasons and their own understandings of the meaning of life. Junpei says, "The meaning of life or death isn't something someone else can just teach you. Making your own decisions is hard no matter who you are. No choice is perfect. But as long as we're alive, we gotta do something." Mitsuru says, "To truly live is to be willing to change, and we have to make those choices for ourselves." Another great example of Aigis' growth is during her social link. After you see the old lady for the last time, Aigis starts to ask various questions like, Kiyoshi-san said people live to be happy. Was Mi-chan-san happy? Was Mi-chan-san happy to be born? For what purpose was Mi-chan-san born? She starts to ponder when life starts and how you're supposed to connect with others, even though life does come to an end. She comes to the conclusion to live means to be connected to others, but life is finite. Farewells are unavoidable. She begins to understand that even though life can be filled with pain or life can be short, it means that it must be cherished. She understands why people find happiness in forging bonds with others because it's a miracle that two people can even meet each other in this big chaotic world. She finally concludes that this is the true joy of being alive. Now you may be wondering, what was Aigis' answer to life? Well, her answer to life was friendship, which was found through living and experiencing those friendships. The friends she made gave her a reason to live again after she fell into despair when Makoto died. She thought the answer was death, however, what she found was friendship with others. Aigis says at the end of the answer, before they go into the Velvet Room, if something's mere presence can make you realize you are alive, and if that something isn't death, maybe it's friendship. Is that the answer to life I'm supposed to find? There are other things that can make us feel alive, and she realized that death isn't the only thing that makes us alive. Aigis also realized that she can still protect Makoto. Cease realized that Nyx isn't actually malicious. It was humanity calling for it. Nyx is humanity's desire to die, while Erebus is the grand manifestation of negative human emotion trying to open the door to Nyx. They want to get rid of this monster, but to do that, people have to change. This is their way of protecting Makoto. They're going to keep going out there and making connections with other people in hopes that they have a positive impact on people's lives, so that maybe humanity can get rid of that desire to die. Now, in spite of all of this, you might be wondering, then what is the answer to life? Even though the answer to life might be different for everyone, I think Persona 3 still gives us some sort of answer as the player. You see, everyone has a journey to their answer to life, and some people find it earlier and some people find it later. But what is the main thing that Persona keeps bringing us to? I believe that what Persona 3 is trying to tell us is to live in spite of death. And in the next section, I will be going through the remaining members of SEAS, exploring their journeys and how they reached this answer. In this section, I'm going to be analyzing the remaining members of SEAS and talk about their journeys throughout the game. Junpei embodies a carefree person, seemingly content with coasting through life's challenges. Upon his induction into SEAS, he initially exudes an air of confidence, aspiring to assume leadership roles and considering himself exceptional due to his inherent abilities. However, during the inaugural full moon operation, Junpei's overzealousness leads to a humbling realization of his limitations, with Makoto stepping in to salvage the situation. This catalyzes a simmering resentment within Junpei, who harbors feelings of envy towards Makoto's perceived heroic stature and yearns for recognition as a capable leader. What Junpei wanted was to be a hero. He wanted to be seen as a competent leader and be acknowledged for his contributions to the group. However, no one ever gave him that acknowledgement, and instead was always met with belittlement from his friends. Junpei never thought he was good at anything. He knows his shortcomings as an individual, and because he was essentially playing the hero and was fulfilling his role with his own power, he wanted the recognition for doing so. Junpei significantly changed as a character due to his flourishing relationship with Chidori, which sparked his first encounter with romantic love. Due to his relationship with Chidori, Junpei discovers a newfound sense of purpose and a desire to protect those he holds dear. Chidori's influence led Junpei to contemplate where his life was going. This led to many moments of vulnerability where he confides in Makoto about his childhood dream of becoming a baseball player and how he felt like he could never be the hero he always wanted to be. This encounter unraveled Junpei's cry out for validation and a longing to be relied upon by others. Unfortunately, Chidori's passing would serve as a catalyst for Junpei's personal growth. Junpei came face to face with life's fragility and the repercussions of his complacency. Junpei confronts his past behaviors and way of thinking to conclude he must abandon his jealousy and heal his insecurities so that he can shape his future. In the answer, Junpei is still grappling with his shortcomings as a person, but soon he comes to a realization that maybe it's okay to just be normal. It's okay to be the quote-unquote the loser. To him, he doesn't see a problem with that, and he embraces who he is inside. Yukari's relationship with Mitsuru is the center of both Yukari's and Mitsuru's development, a connection infused in shared trauma and mutual pursuit of truth. Yukari's father's affiliation with the Kirijo group and his death in a shadow incident a decade prior fueled her desire to uncover the truth behind his death. However, upon learning the truths surrounding SEAS and Mitsuru's involvement, Yukari experienced a sense of betrayal and disillusionment. This led to tension between the two because Yukari questioned Mitsuru's motives. After the Yakushima incident, Yukari decided that she wants to right her father's wrongs. mirroring Mitsuru's own quest to atone for the sins of the Kirijo group. This shared sense of purpose and mutual understanding of their burdensome past is what helped the two forge a deeper connection and closing the gap of the space they had had between them. Yukari then becomes a pillar of support for Mitsuru in her moments of vulnerability following the death of her father. Yukari grounded Mitsuru and guided her as she sorted through her grief. Another part of Yukari's character comes from her father and mother. Due to her mother always having men around growing up, she doesn't want to become like her mother and rely on men. Even during moments of the game or her social link, when you help her, she gets mad at you for it. She later learns to accept this as she grows a deeper relationship with Makoto. In the answer, Yukari is running away from her grief. Makoto's death took a toll on her, and she isolated herself from the others. She tried to put on an act as if she was moving forward. She even makes a remark after the first story when Ken's past was revealed about how she is moving forward and how the others should too. In reality, she was the one who couldn't move on, because at the end, when they were faced with the choice to go back to the past or to the future, she wanted to go back more than anyone. And because of this, it caused a tear in the group. She lost sight of the friends that she had and the people who were there for her, and she pushed them all away. But eventually, she learned how to deal with this grief, and lets the others be there for her like they're supposed to. Yukari's character is a good example of what having a good group of friends can do for someone, and having a support group, someone to lean on. Fuka is presented as a character defined by her gentle demeanor, unwavering kindness, and profound emotional intelligence. At the start of the game, Fuka grapples with feelings of inadequacy and self-doubt, struggling to find her place within Seas due to her lack of combat powers. Nonetheless, her unique abilities as a support member and her proficient analysis and tactical support prove to be invaluable assets to the team. Due to her dedication and determination to contribute in her own way, she gradually earns the respect and admiration from everyone else. Through her relationship with everyone, Fuka experiences moments of personal growth and self-discovery, gradually shedding her insecurities and embracing her own worth. Her genuine empathy and compassion serve as a source of strength for her friends. Ken is a character presented with the burden of premature responsibility and a profound sense of loss. Ken adopts a false sense of maturity due to the death of his mother in an attempt to navigate the world as an adult in order to cope with his loneliness and sense of displacement. This causes him to not enjoy his life as he should. Throughout the story, Ken fights with feelings of worthlessness and despair, contemplating drastic measures such as suicide as he struggles to find meaning in a world devoid of maternal love and support. However, when he joins Seas, it transforms his life and provides him with a sense of belonging and purpose. Ken's biggest change comes when Shinji dies. Shinji's final words to him implore him to live for himself rather than seek revenge. This realization prompts Ken to reassess his priorities and embrace his own identity, rejecting the burden of premature adulthood and allowing himself to embrace the innocence and joy of childhood that he was denying himself. Shinji is presented as your typical delinquent character, but actually shows characteristics of tough love. He utilizes a stern demeanor to express his underlying kindness and concern for others. Shinji was one of the original members of Seas, and his past is stained by tragedy. During the Dark Hour, years prior, when it was only him, Akihiko, and Mitsuru, his persona went berserk, resulting in the death of Ken's mother. This tragic event haunts Shinji and led him to leaving Seas and withdrawing from school. He was consumed by guilt to the point he resorted to suppressants to prevent his persona from going berserk again. Shinji's return to Seas occurred simultaneously with Ken's introduction to the group. He sought redemption and atonement for his past actions. Shinji was willing to accept punishment, even going as far as allowing Ken to kill him. However, his demise was met in the confrontation with Takaya during a full moon operation. Shinji gave his life to protect Ken. Shinji was destined to die eventually like everyone else, but even quicker due to suppressants. But he accepted his end with open arms. He acknowledges the inevitability of his fate and embraces it as his way of atoning for his past mistakes. His final words to Akihiko were, "This is the way it should be." Akihiko is portrayed as the embodiment of strength, resilience, and relentless pursuit of self-improvement. He is disciplined and driven, but underneath the mask of these traits is an individual with a complex inner struggle and a profound sense of duty. He serves as a pillar of strength and leadership within Seas. However, if you look deeply into Akihiko, you will find that his tireless devotion to the eradication of the shadows and the protection of humanity stems from a deeply rooted responsibility planted by personal tragedy. Akihiko lost his sister in a fatal accident which led to his persistent pursuit of strength and self-improvement as he focuses his sorrow into one goal: to gain strength. Despite his confidence, Akihiko's journey is interrupted by moments of vulnerability and contemplation, which gives us a look into his emotional turmoil. Akihiko's character is enhanced even more from his relationships with Seas and his close relationship with Shinji. Shinji's death put life into perspective for Akihiko because he had to confront his own mortality and reevaluate his priorities. Due to his relationship with Makoto and the rest of the members, Akihiko learns the value of friendship, empathy, and the importance of emotional vulnerability. Mitsuru's facade of perfection hides a weighty burden, one she never asked for, but shoulders. On the outside, she embodies the epitome of success. Intelligent, beautiful, affluent, yet underneath this mask lies a young woman haunted by the shadows of her family's legacy and her own past. Awakening to the power of persona at such a young age thrusted Mitsuru into a world of battles and responsibilities far beyond her years. Others her age were enjoying the innocence of youth, but she was fighting against the forces that not only threatened her, but all of humanity. The weight of this duty and the sins of the Kurijo group weigh heavily on her. The silent burden of the incident involving Yukari's father is something she also carries with her. The trappings of her privileged lifestyle serve only to further isolate her from the simple joys of life. Burdened by the expectations placed on her by society and the scrutiny of her family's past, Mitsuru has no room to enjoy the pleasures of youth. She is trapped in a birdcage, waiting for someone to open it so she could fly free. Her social link really shows what's beneath the mask. Mitsuru has never experienced something as simple as dining at a local restaurant or enjoying a bowl of ramen. It shows the extent to which she has been deprived of the ordinary joys of life. These instances of vulnerability humanize her, reminding us that underneath the mask of perfection lies a young woman yearning for connection and understanding. I want to dive into the answer a little bit, because even though the answer was mainly about Aigis and Aigis' journey to find the answer to life, we still get some sort of character arc / conclusion for these characters. When they were faced with the decision to move forward to the future or go back to the past, Seas was split on that decision. Ultimately, the whole reason they ended up in the Abyss of Time was due to their own regrets and refusal to move on. Even though Yukari was putting up a brave front saying she was moving on, she was the first to say that she wanted to go back. She couldn't deal with the grief and was making a decision that Makoto might not have wanted. Mitsuru decided to stand with Yukari, showing us how strong their bond was. Yukari was there for Mitsuru when her father died, and now Mitsuru wants to be beside Yukari to support her. Akihiko and Ken didn't want to dishonor the sacrifices that were made for them to get here. They didn't like the idea of trying to go back to the past because they believed it takes away Makoto's choice and tarnishes what he did. This showcases that Akihiko and Ken made amends and were ready to move on, and we especially see this when we see their past. Junpei wanted to talk things out more and didn't believe that fighting was the answer. He didn't know what to choose, but he knew he didn't want to fight. This conflict showcases everyone's growth as characters, and at the end of the fighting, everyone was ready to move on. Though the answer to life wasn't obtained by these characters, since the answer was about Aigis and not about them, we can still speculate that these characters found some sort of answer, or at least grew as people throughout their journey. In this last section, I want to talk about Kamaki, who to me stands out amongst the social links in Persona 3, especially for his deep exploration of existential themes. Battling a terminal illness, he struggles with the reality of his impending death. Initially bitter and questioning the fairness of his situation, he finds comfort and companionship in Makoto. To escape his troubles, Kamaki immerses himself in literature, and creates a touching story about a pink alligator and a bird. In his tale, the alligator unintentionally causes the bird's death, leading Kamaki to reflect on life and its meaning. Through this narrative, he shifts his perspective, realizing that life is not just about individual achievements, but about the impact one has on others. He understands that even in the face of mortality, simply existing gives life purpose. Kamaki concludes that meaningful living doesn't require grand accomplishments. Rather, it lies in the everyday moments and the potential to positively influence those around us. This powerful narrative arc aligns with the game's broader themes, highlighting reflections on life's meaning, acceptance of death, and the importance of human connection. Kamaki's story encourages players to think about their own lives and the impact they have on others, deepening their understanding of existence. His social link is a vital part of the game, blending thematic richness with narrative depth. The main message of Persona 3 is to embrace life despite the reality of death. The game explores mortality and the struggle to accept that death is inevitable. The idea of memento mori, or remember you must die, serves as a constant reminder for the characters, pushing them to face their own mortality and seek meaning in life. From the start, there's a feeling of looming danger, with pharaohs hinting at threats to come. This urgency drives the characters to reflect on life's purpose in the shadow of death. They confront death daily, battling shadows and risking their lives to protect others, all while grappling with the fear of mortality. This struggle highlights a fundamental part of being human. We know death is coming, yet we still fear it. Throughout the game, characters face death in many forms, losing loved ones, facing their own demise in battle, or dealing with the consequences of their choices. Despite these encounters, they find it hard to accept death, clinging to life even as they confront its reality. Persona 3 encourages players to reflect on life and death, urging them to confront their own mortality and discover meaning amid uncertainty. Even with the threat of death hanging over them, the characters realize that life is valuable. At the end, even as doom approaches, they choose to live fully into the very end.